I'm here to talk about something that I heard on a video. I saw the video recently that Charlie Kirk was having sort of a debate with a young man who was clearly a Christian. And Charlie Kirk said, and I quote, "Are you saying that the New Testament is greater than the Old Testament?" Charlie Kirk was defending the fact that the Old Testament and the New Testament are equal. I want to talk about how that's not true. In fact, there's an entire book of the Bible called the book of Hebrews that tells us that the new covenant is greater than the old covenant. Now, if Charlie meant that the Old Testament is divinely inspired and inerrant, yes, I agree with that, but I don't think that's what he was saying. This is the most important topic that we can talk about. And if you don't get this straight, you're in danger. You need to get this particular thing straight. So here we go. The book of Hebrews. We are going to see that the new covenant is greater than the old covenant, and that many of us, including Charlie Kirk, really need to learn that. Here we are. I'm going to read it to you, and then I'm going to explain what this means. God, who at sundry times and in diverse manners spoke in times past to the fathers by the prophets, and in these last days he's spoken to us by his Son, whom he has appointed heir of all things, by whom he made the worlds. Okay, so I'm going to stop right there. God has spoken in the past before Christ through prophets and through the fathers, such as Abraham. He spoke to us, and those words are recorded in the Old Covenant. He spoke to us, but now he's spoken something else and something greater through his Son, Jesus Christ. And the writer goes on to talk about Jesus being the brightness of his glory, the brightness of Father's glory, and upholding all things by his word's power. When he had himself purged our sins, sat down on the right hand of the majesty on high. And being made so much better than the angels, he has by inheritance obtained a more excellent name than they. Critical. Jesus is the image of God. When we see Jesus, we see God. And Jesus is better than the angels. Now, why is that important? Because the old covenant was mediated by the angels, but the new covenant is mediated by the Son. It is greater. This is the point. I don't think Charlie Kirk understood this. The point is the new covenant is greater, far greater than the old covenant. For unto which of the angels did God say at any time, "You are my son, this day I have begotten you"? And again, "I will be to him a father, and he will be to me a son"? I'm in the book of Hebrews, and I am showing you that the new covenant is greater than the old covenant, that Jesus is greater than the angels, that what we have is greater than what we could have ever been a part of in the past. This new covenant is greater. And so again, I'm reading verse 6. And again, when God brought his first begotten into the world, he said, "And let all the angels of God worship him." And of the angels, he said, "I make the angels spirits and ministers of a flame of fire." But to the Son, to Jesus, he said, "Your throne, O God, is forever and ever. A scepter of righteousness is the scepter of your kingdom." Jesus, you will rule. You will rule. The angels are servants. The angels are servants and ministers of the people who believe in you, Jesus. The angels are our servants and ministers. Ours, you and I, our servants and ministers. And then God continued to speak about Jesus. He says, "You have loved righteousness and hated iniquity. Therefore God, even your God, has anointed you with the oil of gladness above your fellows." Jesus is anointed by God with the oil of gladness. But to which of the angels did God say at any time, "Sit on my right hand until I make your enemies a footstool"? Are they not all ministering spirits? Angels are ministering spirits, sent forth to minister to them who will be the heirs of salvation. The angels minister to us. We are the heirs of salvation because we believe in Jesus. Now, we're going to keep going just for a minute. Therefore, we ought to really give heed to the things which we have heard, lest at any time we should let them slip. Okay, this is how this begins. God used to speak to us by prophets, by the fathers. Now God speaks to us by his Son. And so the Son is greater than the prophets and the angels who ministered the old covenant. The Son is greater. The new covenant is greater. And so he's saying you should pay attention to what the Son is saying, lest at any time you should slip. Because if the word, the gospel, the words of God, the concept, if it was spoken by angels, if that word of the old covenant was steadfast, was sure, was firm, and every disobedience received a just repayment. Every disobedience of the old covenant received a just repayment. How shall we of the new covenant escape if we neglect such a great salvation, which at the first began to be spoken by the Lord, who and was confirmed to us by them that heard him? Okay, the angels spoke the old covenant, and there was punishment associated with that. If we neglect the word, if we don't believe the gospel, then we really aren't believers. And so we're in danger. But if we're believers in Jesus Christ, we are not in danger. The Lord is with us. Hear his word, hear his gospel. The new covenant is greater than the old covenant. And I want that message out because that Charlie Kirk video is pretty, I mean, I saw it, and if I saw it, it's pretty popular. Okay, so then here we go. But we see Jesus, who was made a little lower than the angels for the suffering of death, crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste death for every man. Listen, God made Jesus lower than the angels. He made him a man. Did you know people are lower than the angels? The angels are more powerful than we are, but they are our servants and ministers. Anyway, God made Jesus lower than the angels, made him a man. Why? So he could taste death. Why is Jesus the Son of Man? For sure, he's God. Why is he the Son of Man? Because he came to die for our sins, and God cannot die. He had to be the Son of Man. He had to be man so that he could die. He tasted death. That's why he was made a man. But when he was resurrected, he was crowned with glory and honor, that he, by the grace of God, should taste death for all men. It becomes him bringing many sons, many of us, into glory to make the captain of their salvation perfect through sufferings. It became Jesus to suffer and make us mature and perfect through his sufferings, for which cause he is not ashamed to call us brethren. Jesus is not ashamed of us. We are one with Christ. He suffered and paid the penalty of sin, and he made us perfect. In other words, he took away our sins, and that makes us perfect in God's eyes. And now he's not ashamed to call us brethren. He did the work, and he made us his brethren. And who do we have ministering to us? Angels. The angels, the powerful angels, are less than Christ, and they minister to us, who really are made lower than the angels. This is the summary for now. Charlie Kirk said, the New Testament is not greater than the Old Testament. That's not true. This is dedicated to showing that the New Testament is greater than the Old Testament. And he starts off by saying the Old Testament, which was mediated by angels, in other words, the angels kind of kept the information flowing between God and man. Those angels were the mediators. Jesus is greater than the angels, and Jesus is mediating a greater covenant than the angels mediated. And you need to believe this, and you need to get this straight. The New Testament is greater than the Old Testament. The new covenant, and by that I mean the actual covenant. The new covenant, the new agreement is greater than the old agreement, the law of Moses. That law of Moses was designed to keep you in awareness that you are incapable of pleasing God and becoming righteousness. Because the Old Testament, the old law, was meant for you to keep the law in your own power. God did not come down and help you keep the law of Moses. No, this was the people saying, we can keep this law. So God said, okay, keep it. And they've never kept it, and they never will keep it, and we will never keep it. We could never keep it. But we're not under that covenant because we don't say we can keep it. And the new covenant is greater than the old covenant, y'all. The new covenant is greater than the old covenant. So if you see that video, there's a little man who's just wonderful in this. You know, there's Charlie Kirk, and I'm not down on Charlie. He's a great guy. I don't think he fully comprehended the gospel as God doing it, the old covenant as you doing it. Which do you want to be under? You can be made righteous through the old covenant if you keep the law perfectly. But no one's ever done that, by the way. So probably don't want to try that. But if you come to Christ in the new covenant, Christ is your righteousness. You are right with God because of Jesus. That's the story of the book of Hebrews. And he's going to continue on and on. He's going to say, Jesus is greater than the angels. Jesus is greater than Moses. Jesus is greater than Aaron. He keeps going on and on to show them you need Christ. You need Christ. And he is greater. That's the point. Okay, so that's